Hey traders, back to another lesson. So I just realized I've not really done a proper range trading lesson before. And let's talk about everything in this video. So what's range trading? So a range bound condition. So some call it a range bound condition. Some call it range trading. To me, they're all technically the same thing. So range basically means price have a very defined high, a very defined low. So a common one will be this. Textbook range will be this, but in reality, a real range will have plenty of fake outs, plenty of confusion in between. When you're trading a live range, this is what you're likely to see. This is what you're likely to see in the live market trading a range. So there will be times where price fake out the high, obviously for liquidity sweep purposes. There'll be times where price fake out the low, sort of like it seems like it's rejecting the low, come back, revisit again, another retest, then only push back up, sort of fake out the high again, then come back below. This is what the actual live range is. So a good example will be Euro Yen. So Euro Yen has been on a range for a very long time. So see this, we've been on a range for a very long time, and you see that not all of that was just beautiful equal high. There'll be times where you see price just barely test the low and it started reversing back up. There'll be times where price seems like it's breaking above, doing some fake out, still come back below. Didn't quite tap the low, go back above. Fake out a high a little bit, come back below. Do another retest, another retest. So you can imagine a lot of people when they're trying to chase the sell here, they still get killed. Then go back below, seems like it is reversing very aggressively, come back, fake out the low again, then only it reverse back up. So this is what you're likely to see on the when you're actually trading a live market, trading a range. So go back to it. So range trading, range bound condition. So what's the best way to trade a range? Just give you all a brief lesson here. To me, when it comes to trading a range, there's no any sort of complication. So it's very simple. Our goal is always to short as close as the extreme, the resistance, or as close as to the bottom band as possible. So let's assume we have a resistance and we have a support. Say price to this. So at this point of time, you probably start having clues that is this really a range? Can you short this? The answer is you can. The technique about shorting a range is, first thing, don't expect perfection. So when you're trying to trade a range, or until price has done at least a double retest at the bottom band at the low of the range, or two retests at the upper band or high of the range, you really wouldn't know it's an actual range, right? Common sense. So when you trade the range, the key thing is, first thing, don't expect perfection / don't be greedy. One common behavior is when traders try to trade a range, they want to catch the top. They say, oh, on the previous high, the peak is here. That's the absolute tip of the previous high. So I want to short exactly at the high. But what they've neglected is the fact that a range is a range. A support and resistance is a zone that are not a specific level. So when you try to cherry pick the tip of the level or the tip bottom of the level, you are likely to miss out the potential entry. So one rule I always discuss is, when you have a zone, a very mechanical way to ensure that every single time you put on a limit order is always consistent is to ensure that you enter at the midpoint of the zone. That's at least what I've been doing for a very long time, for many years. So what I like to do is I plot out the zone. So I just ignore here. I plot out the zone and I'll just enter at the midpoint with most likely a limit order. A range bound condition is the easiest to trade with limit order. Why? First thing, it avoids you from overthinking, and also it prevents you from rushing any entry. So a common mistake is also when traders, let's say you have a limit order, it didn't quite tap your limit order and it does this. We would then have a lot of traders trying to chase the sell. The moment when you chase the sell again, you just mess up the entire setup. Why? Because a range is a range. Our goal is to short it as close to the resistance as possible, as close to support. When you short it here versus short it here, what's the big difference? The big difference will be, let me show you. So you short it here versus you short it here. What's the big difference? First thing, your stop loss placement. A reasonable stop loss placement will be above the high, right? That will give you a really poor so-called price position. Second thing is your risk reward is now pretty terrible. Okay, so these are things that you have to be careful. Don't expect perfection. Means don't try to be so cocky and just cherry pick the extreme entry. When you try to do that, I know a lot of SMC trader or ICT trader does that. For me personally, a range is a range. SNR zone is a zone. It's not a specific level. When you do that, that's not every single time that market is just going to hit the level before it reverses. There'll be times where price barely hit the zone and it started reverse back down. So the whole thing to me is all about entering at a reasonable price position. So price position equals to where is your entry in relevant to the next support. Just say SNR zone or your TP. So when you enter here, your price position is good because you have a reasonable stop loss placement level and you also have a very good entry. That will give you a 1 to 6. But the moment you chase it, you probably have a 1 to 2. Okay, so just remember. Second thing, not all range is perfect. Okay, so it goes to like the exact Euro-yen example I just showed all of you. When you're trading a range, there will be times where price do this. It seems like it's dropping, and out of nowhere, it does this again. Then when it does this, a lot of people chicken out of the trade, and then it starts dropping. So when it drops to low, it seems like it's moving, come back again. Okay, so let's say you take a long here, you get stopped out or whatever, you chase it because of FOMO again, and then come out again, fake out the low. Oh, now you try chase the sell. Price pop back up, forms A, fake out, reverse back up. The main reason why the financial market is so tricky, causes such a low win rate for traders. So for the retail space, the success rate of any retail trader, not success rate, sorry, 95% of traders lose money. Just put it this way. So 95% of traders lose money. So why do you exactly think most people lose money? Is because they don't exactly know what's the context of the setup they are trading. So when you're trading a range, is there any sort of perfection? No. And that's also exactly why when you're trading a range, you're supposed to have a very reasonable stop loss placement, because there'll be times where price really try to fake out and then it come back below again, and it's still a range. Will the range be invalidated just because of one tiny poke, one tiny fake out candle? No. Because on the high time frame, on the upper time frame, what's going to happen is you have a long tail. You have a, let's say on the 15-minute, you see this, oh, price fake out is scary, and come back below. On the 4 hour, it's probably just a fake out, just a wick. And that's why when you're overly focused on a lower time frame, this is the common mistake that will happen, which is you're not exactly trading the setup, you're just being too greedy, or you're just seeking for perfection. A range is a range. There'll be times where price fake out the high, fake out the low, and it's still a range. Okay, and then third thing is measuring. This is what I love to do, measuring the percentage. So measuring the percentage means I have a big thumb rule when I'm trying to trade a range. Let me draw a new one for all of you. So another thing that's likely to happen is you have a range high low, okay, let's assume you have this very ugly range. For majority of people, they might think, hey, this is so ugly, how can I possibly trade this? But if you know what you're looking for, it is actually not so complicated. So if you are unsure about this, you can also at the same time when you're watching this video, pull up Euro Yen chart, then you'll see the exact same thing happening again and again over time. So when price forms a large range, means we have this is what I call the extreme high, and this is what I call the extreme low. So when you have price forming a range, we normally have a very defined extreme high and extreme low. But what traders neglect is a lot of times price will form a inside range. So this is a term I created. I just love using the word inside range because within the wide range you have a smaller range most of the time. Just do your back test, you'll see. So when price forms an inside range, as long as your entry is leaning towards the inside range, it is still good. Measuring the range or trading the inside range extreme. So you have this extreme and you have the inside range here. Inside range. So this will be better. So if let's say you missed out this short here and you're feeling very pissed, don't worry, because most of the time market will actually form an inside range that gives you another additional entry level. So what I like to do when it comes to measuring the percentage is I love to draw a range in this way. So this is a range. So assuming from here to here, I'll just call it 100%. This is the full range. That's the entire 100%. So what I like to do is I then tell myself my entry, if I'm going to I'm going to go long or go short, it has to be at the upper 20%. Let me change a different color. Or it has to be at the bottom 20%. So let's assume if this range is 100 pips, that means my entry has to be at least within the top 20% pips range or below the 20% pips range, because this will fix most of the problem, especially when it comes to price position and your RR. The big issue happens when traders, they try to go short in between of the range. Inside our trade club, we call it the mid-range entry. So avoid any mid-range entry. The problem comes when you try to enter in between of the range. That's when you get killed. But as long as you are trading on the upper 20% or the lower 20%, so I don't care if you want to short it here, you want to short it here, you want to short it here, you want to go long here, or go long here or here. As long as it's within the range, this is a valid entry. This is more of entry criteria rather than a setup itself. So I hope this short lesson really tells all of you that range trading is pretty simple. Just don't overcomplicate it. when you try to trade a range, it is all about entering at a good price. You want to get in as close as to the extreme high as possible or to the extreme low as possible. And one last point before we end the video. Re-entry model is often required. So inside our trade club again, there's one thing called a re-entry criteria or a re-entry model. So every single time when we get stopped out on a specific setup, let's say, let me make it more neat. Let's say price go back up. And this time, I decide to go short here. If let's say price go up, stop me out, the moment when it closes back below the range, I'm allowed to take another entry. So re-entry is very often required when you're trying to trade a range, because there'll be times where price really fake out. But the key thing here is we're not seeking for perfection. What we are seeking for is if the setup is still valid or not. Most of the time, even if you get stopped out, the setup is still valid. If it's still valid, you have to go back in. But there's something called the power of two, also something that I created. That means we are only allowed to re-enter a trade idea twice. If you get stopped out once, you get BE once, you still can go in for the third time. The whole thing is you can't lose more than 2R on a specific setup. You can't lose more than 2 times. If you take one loss, you take a second loss, you need to walk away. But if let's say you go short here, you get stopped out and price comes back down. If you re-short again, price now go into your favor, you then again have a good winning trade. It's never about I short one time, it'll go into my favor. There'll be times where it will really take 1 time, 2 times to really get the setup right. And I believe that is the thing that majority of profitable traders know, which is some of the really high quality setup deserves a second chance. It's all about don't overtrade, don't revenge trade, and know exactly what you're doing. And yeah, that's it for the range lesson, a really short one. There's still a lot of things to cover, but I believe these 4 simple criteria, these 4 simple highlights will be able to really transform your entire performance, your entire perspective while trying to trade a range bound condition. So if you like the video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.